Switching lanes now to football on the Sportsmax Zone. The CONCACAF Gold Cup continues to heat up as all 4 quarter-final ties were contested on Saturday and Sunday. Let's have a look at those results now. Matches played on Saturday and Sunday. Panama 4-0 over guest team Qatar. Mexico 2-0 over Costa Rica. And then on Sunday, Jamaica with the Amari Bell goal, 1-0 over Guatemala. And in a thriller, the USA and Canada 2-2 at the end of extra time after a 1-1 scoreline at the end of normal time. And then in the penalty shootout, the USA copping it by 3-2. And those results have set up these semi-final clashes. It's Jamaica against Mexico and the USA against Panama. These matches will be played on Wednesday, and the final comes up this weekend, of course, with the 2 winners of the semi-finals. Jamaica against Mexico, USA against Panama. The Reggae Boys, the only Caribbean team left in the competition, qualified for their 4th semi-final in the last 5 Gold Cup competitions after defeating the Guatemalans. And their head coach, Heimer Hallgrimsson, also, although pleased with the win, said there is room for improvement ahead of their semi-final clash with the Mexicans.
We learned a lot from this match, but still we did enough to win. But I would say this performance would probably not be enough to win Mexico in 3 days. So we need to learn from this game, and we need to be more like a team, even though we are happy with what is happening. You know, we have now 2 games in a row without conceding a goal, which is always a good sign when you are in a knockout competition. So some things we recognize that we did not do well. The same with changes. Now we might suffer to have done the changes maybe a little bit late in the game, but it was more important to win this match rather than thinking 2 steps ahead and then maybe lose and concede a goal. So it's a lot of things going on in a coach's head in a game like this. But overall, I think we had a good team performance today, really a good team performance. And you could see the passion of the players. There was a lot of tired legs in the final minutes of the game. And Guatemala tested us in that area. So no, tactically I'm happy, but we can learn and improve both attacking and defensive.
Boys head coach Heimer Hallgrimsson joining us now, international football correspondent Simon Evans and our in-house football analyst Lige Williams. Simon, welcome to the Sportsmax Zone. Lige, great to have you in the studio as usual. Let me start with Simon. Outside of those comments by coach Hallgrimsson, he was quoted as suggesting following the game last night that he feels that Jamaica has some tools that can hurt any team in world football. How does that comment grab you?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised at the sort of critical tone he took there on his team, because I thought, and it's good that he emphasised the team aspect of it, because actually I was watching the game on television on Fox in America, and they were their pundits were saying, oh well, Jamaica got through that against Guatemala, but are they a team or are they just a collection of good individuals? Talking obviously about the front 3 players that we've discussed so many times. And I was a bit surprised they took that stance, really, because I thought that performance was the strongest team display in terms of discipline of shape, recycling the ball, keeping the ball. I thought that side of the game was the best we've seen, actually, from Jamaica in this tournament. We didn't have as much of the spectacular stuff apart from the goal there and that beautiful pass from Damari Gray. We didn't have as much excitement in the final third as we'd had in other games against, to be honest, lesser teams. But I thought there was a really good shape and feel, and the team looked to be gelling.
And I just got some information that Andre Blake, Amari Bell and Damari Gray have been selected in the CONCACAF Best 11 for the quarterfinals. And I mean, that's really, really good news. I was about to ask you the question about Andre Blake and the brilliant saves that we saw from him in that match and throughout the competition, and then this news came to hand.
Yeah, I mean, I think they all deserve that, absolutely. Could have been a couple more added to that list as well, I think. Look, it's been a very positive tournament so far, and I think Blake's performance was superb yesterday. I mean, that save there was excellent, and there were other important saves. He's been extremely solid throughout the tournament, and I think, you know, I missed a little bit at the start. And Damari Gray's also in the team, and Bell?
And Bell, yeah. in a back three.
Yeah, I mean, Bell's going to be a Premier League footballer next year, and he's looking like one. You know, very strong physically and getting involved in the game in advanced areas as well. So, yeah, I think, you know, the shape of the team looked good. It was solid. Guatemala are a really difficult team to play against. They're not a great team, but they're so high energy that they constantly run at you. They really do test your fitness, as Almagerson indicated. But they want nothing more than a wide-open game. They want nothing more than a game where there's space to get at you on the counter-attack, because that's where they're really strong. What they don't want is a tight, solid opponent to play against who can recycle the ball well and keep control of it. And I thought Jamaica did really well in that aspect.
Lish, I'm a little bit conflicted because I think I may be a little bit more critical of how we performed yesterday. I saw some switching of play from Leon Bailey and Mikel Antonio that was just brilliant. But there are times that there were a few individualistic displays, especially from Gray, who lost the ball in the attacking third on a couple of occasions when he had the options to pass. I'm not sure how you saw the game, so I'm going to ask you your thoughts on the game and Jamaica's performance, first of all.
Well, I think Jamaica played really well. As Simon was alluding to, I think the shape was really good. And as the games go along, I think Jamaica are doing a much better job of holding their shape in both an attacking and a defensive sense. The players are more understanding of what they need to do. But to what you're saying, I think that maybe, yes, there were some individualistic moments, but I think you have to understand the profiles of the players that we have. They are individualistic players. Demar Gray is a dribbler that loves to shoot. Same thing with Leon Bailey. Antonio is someone who usually feeds off scraps, goes into wide areas, and then looks to make things happen. Same with Bobby Reid. These are the players that we have. And when it comes off, it's great. But when it doesn't, it's going to cause some frustration. But I think if you think on it holistically, these are the players that we have. That's the game plan we have, to try and get the ball to these great attackers and let them do things that are going to damage teams. And that's what Hal Grimson was trying to get at when he said that he feels that they can hurt any team. And if you look at these players, we've seen Demar Gray go to the Etihad and score lovely goals against Manchester City, the best team in the world. We've seen Antonio give that same Manchester City team and many teams in the Premier League enormous amounts of trouble. We've seen Bobby Reid do his thing in the Premier League as well. We've seen Leon Bailey do it in Germany and at times in England also. So we've seen these players hurt great teams. So I think he was just trying to say that these players have the quality to do it, so you wouldn't be putting it past them to hurt any team on their day.
Having said that, though, I was a little bit surprised with how Guatemala approached the game. They were a little bit gung-ho. They tried to go at us toe-to-toe, almost like a shootout. The concern that I had, though, was that if a team's going to do that, we would then have to take the chances when they come. And I found that we weren't clinical in the final third. Did you see that as well?
I guess you could say that we didn't. I don't think we created enough clear-cut opportunities, and when we did take them, I think it was just some form of good defending or good goalkeeping that stopped us. Because when you think about, say for instance, the chance of when the ball came to Deshaun Bernard in the box, for example, when Gray was trying to get a shot off on his left foot, that was just a good block in there. And the Leon Bailey chance in the first half towards the end, that was a good block also. So I think it's really difficult, and another day those chances would have fell more in our favor and that could have been a goal. So I think the more important thing is that we're creating those chances, because when you're consistently creating chances, as Jamaica haven't been doing in the past, and then now we're doing that, if we consistently create quality chances, when those chances continue to come, we're going to get goals. And we've seen that before, and I'd be surprised if we don't continue to see that.
Yeah, and Simon, as Leger said, goals. I would personally like to see more goals from the Jamaica Reggae boys. I mean, I think they've been doing brilliantly defensively. That is an A for me. I'd give them an A in that area right now. They play Mexico on Wednesday. Where would you say they need to improve?
Well, yeah, of course, you always want the team to be more clinical and sharper up front, and I think they do have the weapons to deliver that. I think actually Antonio deserves a huge amount of credit for his performance yesterday, even more so than in other games. The amount of work he puts in that isn't hero moments, yeah? It's not the number 9 getting on the end of everything all the time, but he comes and holds up the ball. He makes space for Bailey and Gray to move into. And we were talking on the last time I was on, we were talking about how Bailey and Gray weren't just hanging out wide on the wings and playing like old school wingers, but were coming in and playing in the inside left and inside right channel. It went even further yesterday because we saw quite a few times Gray and Bailey on the same side of the field, which I think can be a really threatening prospect for our positions. If you're a fullback and you've got Gray and Bailey in front of you, you've got some questions to ask. You're not going to do that all the time. That's not a balanced team. But every now and then just to pose that question. So I think... that side of it was good. I think the other side of it that was something that was to need to be done again against Mexico was to avoid giving the ball away too easily. There's nothing Guatemala would have loved more than for Jamaica to go attack, 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 because that's the way Guatemala play. They want that kind of game. Instead, what we saw quite a few times, and I really noticed this in the first half in particular, if there wasn't a great ball on, the Jamaican midfield players, especially the two holding midfielders and Lambert
and Latibodier
around and sorry,
Lambert and Latibodier,
yeah, absolutely. They would, if there wasn't a great ball in front of them, they didn't rush a risky pass forward. They would turn around and play the ball to the fullbacks or to the central defenders and keep possession and take the sting out of the game. You had a stadium there full of Guatemalans going crazy for 90 minutes as well. I mean, the atmosphere was very intense. And Guatemala thrive on that kind of intensity and frantic atmosphere. And I thought that was a very mature display to take that element out of the game as much as they could. And they're going to be playing in Las Vegas against Mexico. I was there for the Nations League the other week. It's going to be 60,000, 70,000 Mexicans in that stadium. They're going to have to do exactly that. They're going to have to frustrate. They're going to have to keep the ball. They're going to slow the game down sometimes, but then pounce when they get the moments.
I find that Mexico a little bit susceptible at the back as well. I'm not sure if you have spotted that. How do you think Jamaica should approach the game? Should they be a little bit more patient? Because we know that a Mexican team, any Mexican team, are pretty dangerous.
I think the game against Costa Rica should give a lot of teams, especially Jamaica, the blueprint of how to beat Mexico, because although Mexico were successful in winning that game, Mexico definitely didn't play their best. Mexico are a team that like to pin teams in and just create chances by pure will, like how you would say a Liverpool, a prime Liverpool would do, or a Bayern Munich would do. Mexico are just a really overwhelming team. But Costa Rica, they were very balanced. They kept their shape well. They limited Mexico to a lot of shots from outside the box, which we have Andre Blake. I'm sure we can deal with that. So, and then try to hit them on the break. And as you said, they are susceptible at the back. And when you hit them on the break, spaces will open up because of the numbers that they flood forward. So I think if we follow that mold, that's a Jamaican mold when we play these teams regardless. And now that we have this added quality up front, we could be really dangerous against Mexico. And Mexico's last group game against Qatar, they lost that game 1-0. And people were saying that Mexico, maybe they didn't play well. That wasn't the case in that game because Qatar had one shot for the entire game and won 1-0. That doesn't happen. Mexico had 26. But against Costa Rica, Mexico actually didn't play to their best. And I think now we're seeing Mexico struggling a little bit. Maybe pressure is coming to them. And I think we have to pounce. We have to be ready. We have to be really brave, especially on the ball, because Mexico's press is really frantic. And Simon alluded to our midfielders being very patient in possession. I saw that even more in the second half when Daniel Johnson came on. And he was trying to move the ball around with Latibo there as well. So I think, especially the defenders in the first and second phase, I think we need to be patient. We don't have to try and just go for long balls or try to get the ball from back to front quickly all the time. I think we need to be patient. We need to move relatively calmly, and I think we can get the better of Mexico.
Okay. Simon, thanks for talking to us here on the Sports Match Zone. The CONCACAF semi-finals coming up on Wednesday. Panama against the USA. And Jamaica against Mexico. Liz, thanks for analysing these quarterfinals as well as looking ahead to the semi-finals. The final coming up on the weekend. Let's see what happens on Wednesday in those critical semi-finals of the CONCACAF Gold Cup.